we're going to speak to you about hair and tension. The tension that a lot of us are putting on our hair through various styles, like accessories that we're putting on our hair. Hey, welcome to another video. Welcome to the Bajo channel. This is the home of self-care, wellness, beauty, and any and everything that'll help you to become a more refined version of you. Today we're going to speak to you about hair and tension. The tension that a lot of us are putting on our hair through various styles, various like accessories that we're putting on our hair. What's happening is over time, the tension, whether it's a lot of tension or kind of moderate tension, is causing us to destroy the follicles in our hair, which causes hair loss. And a lot of times, the reason I want to speak about this is because a lot of times the tension isn't really like excessive, but it's enough that over time that follicle will be damaged and certain areas of your hair become thinner, and eventually they end up falling out and you end up having these empty spots over your hair, for instance. And these things happen so gradually. I wanted to kind of call attention to it so you could kind of pay attention to what you're doing. A lot of us love wearing ponytails. We have certain length hair that we'll put our ponytail in, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. But oftentimes the ponytail is too tight. And sometimes we think because we wear these, what do you call these, scrunchies, instead of a rubber band, that is better. It's better in a sense. But if that scrunchie is still too tight, and it's too tight day after day, it's still gonna do damage. A rubber band that's not too tight is better than a scrunchie. But what happens is, say like you're wearing a ponytail and you wear it in one area. Some wear it like towards the back. Some wear like a high bun kind of ponytail. Some wear a low, like a very low, like nape line ponytail. Wherever you are positioning that ponytail, right? And if it's too tight, over time, it can damage you so much that in that area, that hair will not grow anymore. And it happens over time. It doesn't happen one time, two times. I mean, sometimes, depending on the style that you're getting, if it's extremely tight and you've left it in over a certain period of time, it can immediately damage you. And you can see that breakage and that it's like it retards the hair growth. And it might grow. It may not grow as fast as the rest of your hair, or it may grow thinner, like the density has been destroyed. So whereas your other hair is like so much thicker, this hair is growing like in little strands because it's now damaged. And a lot of times that damage is irreversible. It's a certain layer of your hair. It's a certain layer in the follicle, in your hair follicle. It's called the papilla layer. I never ever forgot this, being in beauty school years ago. And my teacher will always remind us as students that if that layer is damaged, you cannot grow your hair back. Certain layers get damaged and it will slow the growth down, but it'll still grow. And then sometimes a certain layer of your hair is damaged and it will slow it down for a certain amount of time, but then with like certain type of treatments, like maybe electrolysis, maybe scalp manipulations, they go to the dermatologist oftentimes. They have these shots that you can put in your scalp that'll help that hair to grow back. Maybe. You never really know if that papilla layer is damaged completely until you do a few little treatments, and sometimes it can get the hair kind of the circulation and the growth going back. But if it doesn't, that means that layer has been damaged. And that's that growth. It's not happening anymore. And so I wanted to share this because it happens over time. A lot of it happens over time. And I've seen it. Like people will, and even if it's not necessarily a ponytail, it could be braids that you're getting that's just too tight. And, you pay your money, your braids look nice, like your braids look snatched. But sometimes it's too snatched. A lot of to us is losing our hairline because the braids around these edges is too tight. That's why I kind of love this braid that they started doing with, it's the feed-in braid, because you start the braid by braiding your own hair. And even with that, listen, that is much better. But even with that, you can start the braid with your own hair too tight, still pulling that, making that tension excessive. So I'm saying this to say, like, be mindful when you're getting your hair done, when you're doing your own hair. How much tension are you putting on your hair? Because I'm telling you, it can cause permanent hair loss. And I know a lot of times these styles are convenient. No one has time to do their hair every morning, stay in the mirror for 30 or 40 minutes a day. We don't have that type of time. I get it. So we snatch our hair back, or we'll do a style, go get it done. And it's so tight. It's so tight. When I'm personally styling my client's hair, and a lot of times as a stylist, you're guesstimating, is this enough tension? What I'll do is I ask my client, is this too tight? How does this feel? How does it feel on you? And what I notice is, even with any style, you have to pay attention to the tension. Even with a regular weave, like a traditional weave, you braiding that hair up underneath, right? And then you're stitching on top of it. So sometimes if the braiding is already too tight, by the time you stitch it, it's exceptionally tight. So sometimes it's good to start, like, even when you're braiding your hair with that braid base for the weave, make that braid base slightly looser, because you're getting ready to come back on top of it and stitch. Like, it's being mindful. And sometimes it's okay to say to your stylist, like, make sure you make this a little loose, because I don't want to feel that type of tension. And sometimes it's just like it's a balance game. Sometimes the stylist, I can't gauge always how tight is too tight. So I have to communicate with my client, and the client has to communicate with me. And that's okay. The hair loss that's happening is at a rampant speed. I mean, it's astronomical proportions. And a lot of it is just due to tension. It's definitely many other reasons, but for the context of this conversation, the tension is crazy. It's even when we're wearing certain hair accessories, headbands that might be too tight, it can cause traction, rubbing out our hair. And the thing is, we are creatures of habit. So we find a style that works for us, we'll kind of do it repeatedly, especially if we're doing our DIY styles at home. You'll keep pulling that ponytail back, or you'll do that same style and you're pulling and you're pulling. And before you know it, you're seeing like lightness, like the hair is like thinning out. It's just like you can see through those areas. And the thing is, I notice there's a lot of talk about, you want to keep your edges. I want to keep all my hair I can. Definitely your edges, because that's the first thing that a person see when they see your face is your edges, especially if it's pushed back. But a lot of times we're damaging our own hair, just not being aware of that tension. And if you are a person that like to wear ponytails all the time because it's just convenient, just try to be mindful of the tension, number one, but move that ponytail around. You like wearing it to the back, move it up. Take it to the side sometimes. You want to have a high bun? Don't always put it in the same position, because I'm telling you, it can break that hair. I have seen it. I have done it to myself. And here we go. You have the ponytails that we wear. So you put your hair in its own ponytail. And then we take another piece of extension hair and we'll wrap it around, or we'll clamp it on it, or stitch it on it, or however you want to put it on it. So you got more tension on top of tension. And it's like, I want us to be mindful of what we're doing to our hair in the long term. Because a lot of us have lost our hair, losing our hair, and it's not necessary. It's not hereditary. We're doing permanent damage to our hair because we're just unaware. Sometimes I remember I used to wear a ponytail and I used to have the hair like attached to it. Especially when I was young, I wore it all the time. And sometimes just anxiety, doing your hair while you're kind of anxious, you have a tendency to pull a little bit tighter or grab it, more than you normally would. And areas in your hair stop growing the way it grows. I know there's an area in my hair, and nobody will ever know it, but it's not as dense as the rest of my hair. And that happened because of my ponytail days. My ponytail days, I was pulling, I was snatching, I didn't want to be bothered with my hair. I've always been in the hair industry, so one of the things I was like, I don't want to be bothered. And I was young. I had to be in my 20s, easy. And when that happened, and I stopped wearing the ponytail and I started doing other styles, that hair is growing, but it never was like the rest of the hair. It was always very fine. It would grow at the same length, but it was always less dense than everything else. And I see it still happening. So I just wanted to do this video to kind of be mindful of the tension that you're putting on your hair with any style, with anything, braids, and especially, I'm going to give you another style that you really got to be mindful of when you're getting it. And like, if you have to stop in the middle of the process and check faux locks. Faux locks. Faux locks is a process where you start the hair, like everybody do their faux locks differently. Sometimes they do their faux locks with a rubber band. Some people do a faux lock just with a simple plait. But however it's done, you have to grab a section of the hair because you're making locks. So once you grab that section of the hair, make sure that hair is not grabbed too tight. That's the first thing. But more importantly about the tension with the faux locks, more importantly, the hair now is going to be wrapped around whatever base that's being put on your hair. You're going to take that extra hair, that synthetic hair, or whatever hair you're using, and you're going to wrap, starting at the base, and you're going to wrap down. That hair at the base cannot be wrapped too tight. As a matter of fact, I would recommend, highly recommend, when you're getting your faux locks, leave a little space, like a little give in your root. Like, it doesn't have to be extremely tight. Like, long gone are the days where you think that your hair have to be super tight to be super neat. No. You can grab that hair at that root, and you can have like a little space where if you touch it, it could have some type of like a bounce to it. Like, it's not like extremely stuck to your scalp. It's like a little room. Like, almost like when you're doing a ponytail on a baby. You're not going to do it like extremely tight. It's enough that it's going to stay, but you can see that that follicle is not being pulled. With the faux locks, you could put the rubber band or the plait in nice, not too much tension. But once the wrapping starts, you have to make sure that when you're getting your faux locks, that the person that's doing them, or even if you're doing them yourself, you have to understand it cannot be that tight at the root. Because with a faux lock, when you wrapping it and it's extremely too tight, that entire lock can break. Or maybe the lock don't break, but the hair that it's attached to, once you take those locks out, it can come off straight like that. Not even a long process, immediate. It'll stay while you're wearing your style, but once you take that lock off, you see that hair has broken, and hopefully you haven't done permanent damage. Be mindful of the tension that you're putting on your hair. It really does matter, because the style that you're wearing today, more likely than not, you're not going to want to wear that style in a few years. maybe in a few weeks. Be mindful. You want to be able to salvage the integrity of your hair in every style. If you're wearing a style that you know that it may be damaging, get rid of that style or modify the style. Modify the style. I always tell you, get a great stylist. Work on it. If you get one you don't like them, go to another one until you feel comfortable. And when you feel comfortable, the best stylists are the ones that you can really communicate with. Communicate with your stylist, and let them know, like, I'm really conscious of my tension. I like my faux locks. I like my braids. I like my ponytail. But I want us to pay attention together to make sure that the tension is not going to do any long-term damage. That's it. Communication. So, yeah, that's it. Just making sure that what you're doing on a daily basis, you're not doing permanent damage over the long term. Tension. Just be mindful, please. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I appreciate you. There's so many different areas in our life that we can focus on our own self-care and not to overlook anything. Don't overlook anything when it comes to your self-care. So I thank you for listening and thank you for watching. We appreciate you. This is the Bajo channel, home of self-care, beauty, wellness, and every and anything that'll help you to just become a better version of you. So I thank you for listening. And remember, self-care is the best care. Later.